How's it going, everybody? We are preparing for another NFL season now that we have the full calendar to look at. I am Darrell Harris. Thank you for tuning in to Sports Wrap Daily. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and take a bit of a deep dive into what this Raiders season may or may not look like, because the games have to be played for a reason. And there's a lot of uncertainties, a lot of question marks around what this team will look like, starting off with some of the moves that they made during the offseason. And this is what the schedule is going to start off with. A couple of preseason games, which, again, they've scaled back the preseason in years past to where it's become less significant. And the teams didn't treat it that serious. They're also extending the regular season, which is why there's 18 weeks now, 17 games. Believe it or not, that could grow again. If you recall, the Super Bowl was around Valentine's Day. It was the latest it's ever been, and that was sort of testing the waters for how long they could push that footprint of the season, which goes from the first week of September. Second week, preseasons will be kicking off end of August, clear until February. So we get 6 months of our calendar year to dedicate to football. And for the Raiders, week 1, they are taking on the Miami Dolphins in an afternoon game. I will highlight again that there are no primetime marquee games for the Raiders. Primetime meaning Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, or even a Thursday night standalone window. The Raiders do not have any of those on the calendar after having several last season and stinking it up during each of those, essentially. So while this year's team is hoping to be much better, hoping to at least improve off of last year, the league said, you know what? We got to ensure that we have a good product on when it's one of those marquee games. And you can only plan so much when you're projecting what the next 18 weeks are going to look like and before any injuries or anything like that happen. So starting off against the Dolphins, that's a winnable game. As you'll see a little bit later on, the Dolphins, they're not projecting them to have a great season at all. Matter of fact, they are towards the bottom of the league in win total projections. So that is a winnable game. It's also interesting because Miami is Fernando Mendoza's hometown. We'll talk more about the quarterback battle or split for reps that's going to be taking place, but winnable game at home, week 1 in the afternoon against the Dolphins. I would say the Raiders have to win that. New quarterback coming in for the Dolphins. They signed Malik Willis to a hefty contract, so he'll be the starter. They extended Devon Achane, and they also made some other moves. They let go of Tyreek Hill. They traded away Jalen Waddle. So the Dolphins are not looking to be one of the more competitive teams in the AFC South next year, AFC East. But that doesn't mean take your foot off the gas. You got to come out that first week ready to play, or else you'll lose. And remember last year, the Raiders actually took down the Patriots in week 1. So this will be interesting to see. Hopefully the Raiders can get that done because it'll get a little tougher the following week. They are on the road at the Chargers, another afternoon kickoff. First of what will be 6 AFC West matchups, playing the other 3 teams twice each. The Chargers coming off a trip to the postseason. It didn't end well for the Chargers, so they'll be looking to sort of wash that last season's taste out when the next one does begin. And they also were successful against the Raiders last year. That's not saying too much, but the Chargers are going to be a little different. It'll be year 2 under Jim Harbaugh. They have retooled around the edges. Justin Herbert still there. The running game, they took some hits to their running backs last season, but they're going to be more of a ground and pound offense. We saw that last year. It wasn't Justin Herbert showcase every week. There was more of the Jim Harbaugh style offense backed by a strong defense. That defense does remain pretty strong. Khalil Mack returned. They have Derwin James in the backfield. And also remember, Mike McDaniel is their new offensive coordinator. So we actually might get some surprises from this Chargers offense in the upcoming season. We'll have to stay tuned and see how that develops. Week 3, September 27th, traveling to the New Orleans Saints. And that's another winnable game. The Saints weren't in the postseason last year, but they're also talented and looking to improve off of how they were last year. Tyler Shuck was a rookie quarterback. He appears to be the starter going into the upcoming season. No other headline sort of moves by New Orleans. There was a lot of rumors around Alvin Kamara, still there. Receiving core is decent. They have their couple utility weapons. They let go of some big name players on the defensive end, but nothing that's shocking there. They'll be checking out their draft picks as well. Follow that up when they come back home. The Raiders will be battling the Chiefs. So remember, the Chiefs pretty much have owned the Raiders at Allegiant Stadium, except the end of last season. The Raiders finally got their first home win against Kansas City to end last year, and it ended on a Daniel Carlson field goal. We'll see if they can, carry that over in the next year. We know that Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL late in the year. Uncertain what his time frame for recovery will be. My advice to Pat, if he watches Sports Rap Daily, is, hey, Pat, I think week 5 sounds like a great time to shoot for. First 4 weeks, Pat, I think that's not realistic. I think that'd be tongue-in-cheek just a little bit. Of course, if he doesn't play, Justin Fields is the backup. So I don't think that team's going to be a rollover whether or not Patrick Mahomes starts at quarterback. They also brought in Kenneth Walker. They re-signed. Travis Kelce's still there. Rashee Rice just got in a bit of a hiccup. He'll be missing these mandatory OTAs because of a parole violation. But that's a team that's capable of, showing you who they are at any given week. They also did let go of their top cornerback last year, which is bit of a surprise. Jerry Sneed, they let him go to the Chargers. So that's a good piece that LA picked up, in that the Chiefs lost. They did go ahead and draft some potential replacements as well. So new look Chiefs team with a couple of new faces, and TBD on Patrick Mahomes. We'll see the Chiefs again in Las Vegas at the end. Not again in Las Vegas, but the Raiders will see them again on the schedule at the end of the upcoming season. Rounding out week 5, a trip to New England to play the reigning AFC champions, the Patriots. Drake May going into year 3. Mike Vrabel, the head coach. As of now, if something changes between now and the regular season, then we'll report on that, of course. But other than that, New England, I'm hoping that they don't get the hangover year. It happens often to the Super Bowl runner-ups, where a more challenging schedule the following season, or just a tougher contest put up by the opponent the upcoming year. A lot of times that Super Bowl runner-up team faces some challenges and some struggles that next season. We saw that with the Eagles and the Chiefs this past couple of years, coming off of them taking turns on going to the Super Bowl, the 49ers in between there as well, where the following year you tend to see one of those hangover instances. So the Patriots are going to try to not let that happen to them. Meanwhile, this team is, finding their footing. They've got a lot of new positions on the Raiders, a lot of rookies that came in during OTAs. So in the weeks and months leading up to the regular season, they will definitely be experimenting a little bit. And I think that in those first couple weeks of the season, we'll still see some experimenting. And it's best to try and find out what works early, so that way, A, you're in a rhythm sooner than later, but also B, you can switch it up along the season as you need to. They've brought in a lot of different defensive pieces. I don't think that they'll figure out exactly and that it'll look the same all season long, but the other perks of that is having alternatives, having substitutions that you can make on the fly, and we shall see. So let's take a quick break and then look at the next portion of that schedule when we come back here on Sports Rap Daily. Welcome back to Sports Rap Daily. I'm Darrell Harris. We are looking ahead to the Raiders' upcoming season, breaking down the schedule so far. We're 5 weeks in. I count at least 2 wins. They need to get at least 2 wins in that first batch. Let's see how many more we can get, because it gets a little tricky in this meat and potatoes of the schedule. Week 6, home against the Bills. That won't be friendly. Josh Allen, of course, and company will be coming here to Allegiant Stadium. I haven't seen Josh at Allegiant yet, so that'll be nice. That'll be a nice treat for the fans. I'm sure that plenty Buffalo Bills Mafia will make the trip out here for that as well. And that'll be a test. that'll be one of those earlier tests to see what this team could do against other competition in the AFC, some of the AFC's best, in fact. And if that's not enough, the following week, Raiders, you don't have to go anywhere, stay home, but you're going to get some of the NFC's best because the Rams are coming to Allegiant Stadium. And they're bringing everybody back. Matt Stafford's coming off an MVP season. His teammates said, Matt, we want you to come back basically just because we have to get you another Super Bowl. So this Rams team is going to be very serious. They did draft a backup QB. I don't expect to see him start in week 6 or 7, however, that's for sure, unless something happens to Matt Stafford. But Sean McVay and company will definitely be ready when they come to Allegiant Stadium. And again, those are 2 chances for the Raiders. They certainly won't be favored. They'll probably be a touchdown or so underdogs at least. But those are those opportunities to see, hey, maybe you're better than you expect. Where the final score or just the outcome won't necessarily tell you everything you need to know about that game. This was last year. These were very lopsided games. So it would be a step in the right direction for those 2 home games especially to at least be competitive. After that, there's a bit of a reprieve on the road going to the Jets and then at the 49ers. The 49ers can be very good this year. They might be just okay this year. We'll see. Christian McCaffrey, of course, is back. They've got a couple different pieces at wideout. Last year, they were so injury hit that it made what they were trying to accomplish much more difficult, even though they still got to the postseason. But they lost guys like George Kittle and others to season-long injuries, so hopefully they're going to be closer to full strength. And that road game is going to be a very exciting game in the Bay Area with some OG Oakland Raider fans, I'm sure, turning out at Levi Stadium to support the silver and black. But let's see, that is 10 weeks in because then the Seahawks coming to Allegiant Stadium, the reigning Super Bowl champions. I'm looking at 1.5 win out of these 5 games if we're being optimistic. And that half I know doesn't really exist, but I'm thinking that maybe you get lucky against the 49ers or, Clint Kubiak has a masterclass performance against his old team in Seattle. Or you got to sneak one of those upsets against the Bills, Rams, or 49ers. But this is a really tough portion of the schedule where you want your best product on the field. And is that best version of the Raiders with Fernando Mendoza or Kirk Cousins? We don't know yet until we get a sample size of some of this against competition. We have heard from Fernando so far, and we know that he is embracing the opportunity to still study under and beside Kirk Cousins in the offseason.
Going now to be in the facility and having access to the film and seeing the application, seeing Kirk Cousins do it back in Minnesota, seeing Sam Darnold do it last year in Seattle, see the application and how it's supposed to be executed and what it's done at a high level is really beneficial for my development. And that's something from coming day 1, just seeing it on the paper and taking it in. And then day 2, last night with the coaches, really studying, okay, this is how Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold did it. This is how their footwork and eyes looked. So can we put that on the field today? And I think we did.
I'm supportive of Fernando Mendoza. I think that you don't know what you're going to be able to get until you do throw him out there. I trust the coaches and leadership in the Raiders facility to understand whether or not he's ready for that. So as we get closer to the season, we'll see what announcements are made, but I do expect them to try and get him opportunities early. So even if, say, Kirk is the starter, I wouldn't be surprised if you see some Mendoza reps. I think that he's somebody to where you don't need to hold him back too much. Of course, you want to see what the line performs like. They did address the offensive line and the receiving core. There was a lot been made out of whether they still need to go get a primary target. Right now, they're entering the season with Jalen Naylor, Jack Bech, Tyquan Thornton, and none of those guys really jump out at you as wide receiver 1. Well, I think wide receiver 1 is going to be Brock Bowers. I think we're pretty confident in that because they have multiple tight ends on the roster. This is Brock playing with some kiddos, getting ready for the season. He was the rookie of the year. During his rookie year, he's getting ready for year 3. They still have Michael Mayer. They added Albert O. They brought back Ian Thomas. So they've got 4 tight ends on the roster. They also signed a fullback. You tell me where you hear a bunch of 4 and 5 wide receiver sets. That's not quite what I'm picturing the scheme to look like, formation and personnel-wise, which means that Brock is probably going to be lining up in the slot plenty. He might be the lone wideout plenty times, plenty sets, opposite a Naylor and a Trey Tucker, or they can experiment all over the place. But Brock is still going to be a walking mismatch because you put a linebacker on him, he's a little too shifty for that. You put a DB on him, he's got too much size for that. So that's still the real X factor in the passing game, regardless of who's playing quarterback. You need that array of targets while you still have Ashton Genty out of the backfield and Mike Washington now out of the backfield and a couple of different backs, Dylan Lawbay still out of the backfield. All the RPO stuff that you can do. I think Fernando gives you more options when you're talking RPOs and reads and making decisions on option plays. But Kirk Cousins brings that experience of knowing what the pressure is like, knowing what personnels and disguised coverages might look like, and being able to read that better initially. So there's pros and cons to both. I think that it will be something worth following and expecting the Raiders to give Fernando some opportunity early so that way they don't get too far or potentially dig too much of a hole where, say, Fernando is good and you're like, well, why didn't you play him from the beginning? Maybe the record would have been different. So, and before we get to week 10, I expect Fernando Mendoza not maybe to be the outright starter, but I do think that we will see a good sample size of Fernando Mendoza in the first half of the season, unless maybe Kirk blows us all away and he looks like all-pro Kirk Cousins. And if that's the case, you're right, the hot hand, but we shall see. We got some more season to look ahead and preview, so we're going to do that. Take another break. You're watching Sports Wrap Daily. We're back here on Sports Wrap Daily. Let's keep on trucking through the Raiders' regular season. This is an outlook on how they may fare, but more importantly and specifically who and what order they'll be playing these games in, what might arise, what sort of things to look out for. We just established that, that middle of the season, October going in November is going to be a challenge. And say they make it through that first 10 weeks, 500, wow. Then this team could really, maybe stay afloat and have opportunity to get into the postseason. Possibly, if through those first 10 weeks they're 2-8, again, that was a rough stretch right there in the middle, but it'll impact how competitive they are taking some of these games down the stretch. So let's pick it up week 11. First of 2 matchups with the Broncos. That'll be, first one is on the road, November 22nd, about Thanksgiving week, getting ready for Thanksgiving now. On the back end of Thanksgiving, they travel again to the Browns. So the Broncos, they won the division last year. However, the Raiders played them very closely on the road, even though they finished with a really impressive record. The Raiders went to Denver last year and lost 10-7 on a Thursday night, which means that the defense did their job. That was a healthy Bo Nix and company. Bo Nix enters this year not healthy. Conflicting reports on what his condition may or may not be going into the season. We're still got some time for that to change and be updated and developed, but Bo Nix might not be 100% for the duration of the year. By the latter end of the season, these games will really start to matter. We know that Sean Payton is a veteran coach as well, so whoever's playing at quarterback, Sean Payton will have them prepared, and the Broncos will be favored in both contests against the Raiders. I just wanted to point out, though, that they did play this team competitively last year in Denver. It wouldn't surprise me if it's another competitive, close game, especially knowing that the Broncos, in my opinion, they're beatable. They're beatable. I'm not very intimidated by their skill position players. They much improved defense, arguably the best cornerback in the game, pass return second, and Nick Bonito, he was a monster last year, one of the sack leaders in the NFL. So Denver will be good. The Browns beat the Raiders here at Allegiant Stadium last season. So if you're Las Vegas, you're probably hoping to go get revenge in Cleveland. It's going to be at 10 a.m. It's going to be a chillier game. We might see some snow by this time of year, maybe not. But going to the East Coast as you hit these later ends of the calendar year, the winter portion of the season, you have to start game planning completely different because you have to factor in the conditions and the weather chances for those games as well. Then they hit a bye week, week 13. It's actually their bye, late bye week. We're talking fantasy playoffs might be starting in some leagues before the Raiders hit a bye week. That's another thing that impacts how they navigate the season. They don't have an early reset week. They've got a gauntlet. They've got 12 weeks of games before they take a break. No international trips, nothing like on a Monday or a Thursday to where it really throws off their week. So they're basically playing week after week after week after week, Sunday afternoon almost entirely, a couple of 10 a.m. slots here on the West Coast. But they don't get a week off until coming out of that game against the Browns. So first week of September, October, clear to the end of November before the Raiders hit a bye week. Again, that's going to be tricky. By week 13, perhaps 4 wins, Perhaps they're 4-8. Perhaps maybe they're better than that. Maybe they're closer to 6-6 territory. But again, it's late in the season for that bye week to where not a whole lot can be done on the back end. This is where health comes into play. You need the right bodies to be there and sustain all season long. Coming out of the bye week, boom, facing the Chargers again. So that'll be another difficult matchup. Second one against the Broncos. And then week, what is that? 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 almost. They got the Titans here. That's going to be a challenge as well, just because they're in the same boat as the Raiders. This was a game that Las Vegas was able to win last year, but those were two of the bottom teams in the NFL that are looking to show that they made progress this year. So at the end of this season, where their rookies will be very seasoned, and it'll be year 2 for Cam Ward and company, new head coach Robert Saleh, we know is the real deal. As always, Robert Saleh and Brian Daboll heading up the Tennessee Titans, who will be hosting a Super Bowl as well in a couple of years. They're not going to be playing around. And let's, as a matter of fact, go ahead and finish up the look at the season really quick. Weeks 18, it will end with a game that's still to be decided against the Kansas City Chiefs. Timing-wise, they always will sort of flex those games. Week 17, the week prior to that, at the Cardinals, which is a winnable game. So they start the season against Miami, winnable. End the season with the Cardinals, pretty winnable. But right before that, they have that game against the Browns, the game against the Titans. It's going to be a tough year for the Raiders. And I know I threw out not too long ago they could maybe get to 8, 9, 10 wins. I would still hold on to that. However, this is a challenging schedule. They didn't get a pleasant break by having to face the NFC West, by having to see the 49ers, the Rams, the Seahawks. Somehow the Bills landed on the schedule as well, along with the Dolphins and the AFC East, some AFC East opponents there, the Patriots. Those are two tougher conferences, the AFC East and the NFC West, along with the toughest division in football, the AFC West, with the Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos on the Raiders schedule every year, twice a year. So it makes sense why they're plus 550 to make the playoffs, which are only ahead of the Jets, Dolphins, and Cardinals, which goes to show where they sort of have this team slotted. They still have them, the odds makers and sports books have the Raiders at the bottom of the league still. They're plus 1,800 or so to win the AFC West. And that's with the Chargers, Chiefs, and Broncos being all bunched together like neck and neck. Then there's this humongous jump to the Raiders. So they would have to shock the world to really be impressive next year. All depends on the defense. Let's, remind the people that Max Crosby and company will look very different this coming season. The defense was pretty darn good last year, and it kept them in a lot of games. If that repeats itself, hopefully the offense is able to tilt the balance and make it a bit more even to where who knows? Maybe they can inch up on a 500 season or at least get more wins than last year. Last year, the 3-13, 3-14 performance, that can be replicated. You know, they have to show signs of improvement, and we shall see. They made a lot of moves under Spytek, and head coach Clint Kubiak coming in. I think they had a great draft, and Max is back. They've got a lot of new pieces around him on that defensive end, so we shall see how that results in the wins and losses column. But there you have it, 18 weeks. It won't be easy. It'll be a marathon. It'll be a gauntlet, and the closer and closer we get, we'll get a better picture of what that unit or look like on both sides of the ball. But this has been fun going through this Raiders upcoming season. You all let us know. What do you think? You know, we're going to have to open it up for conversation to see what you all would put as their maybe over-under. But I said 10 not too long ago, which I didn't. They forced me into saying that. I said I think wild cards within range. Give me 7. Give me 7 wins for the Raiders this year. Find a way to get to 7. I'll be pleased. But that does it for us today on Sports Wrap Daily. We'll be back very soon to talk more